tired of seeing this city go down the tubes with this drug. This heroin is ruining my city, my town.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Janine Rose.
And I'm Scott McGee. The use of heroin is reaching epidemic proportions.
It is a drug that used to be associated with only hardcore addicts and street junkies, but now middle-class kids and young adults are using it to get high right in their own neighborhood.
Tired of reading the newspaper and hearing about drug overdose. And kids that's 16, 17 years old, 18, that's dying out here because of heroin.
First time I did heroin, I was 18 years old. I'm not proud of the things I did. I had legal problems.
There is some research to point to the fact that heroin might be the worst drug of all time.
I clean up, put everything away, and just lay back and enjoy. It's all gone, and the poison takes over again.
With its many disturbing ways of destroying families, homes, jobs, and even children, it is one of the most feared street drugs, not only in the United States, but some say the world. To explore more on the heroin use here in Kokomo, we went to interview Howard County Coroner J.D. Price, there at the Howard County Coroner's office downtown.
Well, we've had last year, 2015, there was 36 total ODs.
Heroin ODs.
Well, not all heroin.
Not all heroin.
No. And of course, that does not include the ones that were flown out to either Indianapolis or Fort Wayne. Usually if they're in critical condition, when they arrive at the emergency room, then they're shipped out. And of course, I have no idea how many have survived or passed because we were not notified on that.
Well, little did I know that me doing what I wanted was going to end up spiraling out of control. Later on, I moved in with my father. I lived in a good home, had a good family, had a really good home life. I didn't want or need for anything. But emotionally, I struggled, but I didn't talk about it. I kept everything to myself and isolated. I fell into a bad crowd. And I was just smoking weed and drinking, what I thought was normal for kids my age. That lasted for a couple years, and then it progressed rather quickly. At 15, I met a boy who was a heroin addict. And for some odd reason, I thought that using heroin sounded like a great idea. So I did it, and first time I ever used hard drugs was through a needle. And I didn't want to touch it any way else after that. It didn't happen like, I was just doing it to party. It ended up an everyday thing almost right away. I was very manipulative. I was deceitful. I was something. I don't even know how to quite explain it.
I grew up pretty privileged, which led to a huge entitlement issue for me. I think it was always kind of my problem. I just thought I could do whatever I wanted, whenever I wanted, and I pretty much did. Got in trouble a lot, probably not as much as I should have. My dad was a local attorney, and I think he probably thought he was helping me, but didn't end up helping me so much. I probably should have just gotten some more trouble back in the day that would help me now. Went to IU for college, and that was just another big party for me. Had several drug and alcohol related arrests during that time. graduated. Then I moved to San Diego for graduate school. That was pretty overwhelming. It was a lot of work, full-time school, full-time work. I was a forensic science major, so I had to log lots of hours at the lab, at the morgue, and I just didn't think I could do it. So my neighbor, being so kind, introduced me to methamphetamine, which became my new best friend. But I would never, ever refer to meth as a drug, because for me it wasn't a drug. That was, couldn't be a drug. It was a steady aid, something to help me stay up so I could do things. I would rationalize it into something so it wasn't so ugly. That worked for, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so. And then at that point, academically I was still excelling, but mentally, physically, I was a train wreck. I lost a bunch of weight, I kicked myself to death, I just was a raging bitch, like I would snap and, just emotional all over the place. I was able to hide it pretty well because, of course, I was 2,500 miles away from my friends, my family, anyone that knew me, so it was pretty easy to do until I came home for that first visit and got off that plane, and my dad took one look at me and was like I knew when he looked at me, I think I probably came up with some excuse of what was going on, but I don't think he really bought it.
It's very emotional because, when you're dealing with death, these individuals are good people. And it's unfortunate they have just made bad mistakes. And, it's very hard on the family. And we, as the coroner and my deputies, we try to help the families through this. And it's very difficult because one of my problems is that I cannot leave it at the office. I take it home with me. And I think about it, how it's tearing a family apart. And, then you have families that are not aware that their loved one was on drugs, and then you have families that do know. And it just, okay, why? Why? It's very frustrating.
One of the things that I've discovered is that people who are still active in their addiction look at me as being the bad guy, and they hate me. They wouldn't dump water on me if I was on fire. But we get people who are in recovery and they recognize what we're doing and what we're doing to help them and what we have done to help them. And they very, very much appreciate, almost to the point of love, what I'm doing. We don't want to throw people in the Department of Corrections just because we're mad at them.
Right.
And that's what we try and do, and try and look at the individual situation. What is the individual's offender's position? You kill somebody, and I recognize that you're a risk to do it again. I'm going to lock you up for as long as I possibly can. If you're a drug addict, I want you to be detoxed and into treatment.
My parents are not addicts, so it made it very, very easy for me to get away with what I was doing. And I thought I was a good liar, so I was doing pretty good for a while, until I got really, really careless. I lost my best friend to an overdose, and it started getting worse. Started experimenting with other drugs, but always came right back to heroin. At 17, a traumatic event happened, and that's when I completely lost who I was as a person. That's when I really spiraled out of control. Any bit of self-worth I ever had was gone. It was taken. And that's when my carelessness really became apparent to my family. My father had surgery. I stole his whole bottle of morphine, not even discreetly, I just took it. My grandfather took all his prescriptions. I was stealing very large amounts of money at a time from my father. And really anybody, if I saw money, I was going to take it. My parents ended up catching on. And I came home one night after all day festivities of getting high, and they had a drug test waiting on me. My dad thought I was only going to fail for weed. You know, he was still pretty, I'm trying to think of the word, naive, yeah, that word. He was still pretty naive. But my mother was there and she was not. And I failed for just about everything. Long story short, I went to rehab that night, not willingly, but I was going to do what I had to do so I didn't get kicked out of my house. So I had no place to go. I went to rehab. I came home. I finished high school, barely. And then I graduated high school, and I did what all the high school kids were doing, and I started drinking.
In the next couple of years, I had my son, I got married, I got divorced. I was kind of just going through the motions without really knowing what I was doing. Then I started using cocaine, which is my drug of choice. I put tens of thousands of dollars up my nose. And then when it got physically impossible to do that for whatever reason, nosebleeds, because it was too stuffy, it was too sore, couldn't do it, I started freebasing, and then I would rock it up and smoke crack.
The difficult thing is trying to sort out drug addicts from the people who are not drug addicts.
Right.
And virtually everybody who comes into my courtroom with a drug case tries to portray themselves as being a drug addict because they recognize that treatment is the outcome for an addict.
Right.
And it's the only sensible outcome. Well, treatment is not prison.
Right, for sure.
And so everybody's coming in claiming they're an addict.
To get both sides of the issue, we contacted a local drug dealer and brought him in for an interview. We obscured his face and we will not say his name, but here's what he had to say.
How long have you been dealing?
I mean, you know, I've been dealing drugs for about 20, 25 years, but for the last 4 years I've been dealing heroin. That's my drug of choice.
So do you deal cocaine or any other drugs?
Nah, strictly heroin. I mean, you know, it's cheaper right now. I mean, this big, you know, people used to be addicted to pills down here. So heroin was cheaper than buying pills. So, you know, everybody started using heroin. And I seen that was finna be the new drug of choice. So I got in, you know what I'm saying? And I just been dealing heroin now, you know.
What kind of people do you serve?
Man, do they come from all types of backgrounds? I mean, I serve all different type of peoples, you know what I'm saying? You know, from the ghetto to the suburbs, you know, I mean, doctors, lawyers, their kids, you know, all different type of people, you know what I'm saying? They come and buy my shit.
Have you ever served any minors? Any kids or pregnant women?
Man, listen, I don't give no f***. As long as your f***ing money is green, you can buy my shit. And that's just the way it is. I don't give a f***. There's only 3 ways you're gonna go in this game, baby. Let's go to prison, or get killed, or retire rich. And I plan on retiring rich. I don't give a f***. As long as your money green, I got to have it.
That relationship ended and I ended up moving in with the dope man, where it brought me to a life of chaos. paranoia, extreme paranoia, and around a bunch of people that I should have never been around. I was in very dangerous situations daily, and I was just a little girl. All I wanted was a place to stay and drugs to do, and that's what I did. It took me to an all-new dark place, darker than before, because I was no longer just addicted to the drugs. I was addicted to the lifestyle. I loved everything about what I was doing for a little while, until heroin came back into the picture. And I was no longer snorting my drugs. It was IV use again. I think I was 19 at the time. Okay, I can't remember. I can't do the math in my head. But at that time, I had accepted that that's how I was going to die. The drugs were going to be how I died. And I was okay with it, and I was ready for it to happen. Because I didn't know how to live sober. I didn't really want to. Because I could not cope with things that went on, and I didn't want to face my problems. I would rather run from them. I promised myself I wasn't going to cry tonight because last time I was a big baby. I was arrested May 28th of 2014 at about 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to tell officers that I was doing no harm, you know? Just out cruising the streets with someone I probably should have never been with. You know, I still tried lying. I knew I was going to jail and I still tried lying, you know? The proof was right there and I'm still giving them a line of crap.
Then I got to the point where I would get so high I couldn't come down. So I started with the opiates. Lots of Opiana, that was my choice. Then my mom was diagnosed with cancer and moved in with me. So then I was like a kid in a candy store. And I had Oxys, Roxys, Percocet, fentanyl patches that I would cut up and chew up. You know, I remember talking to Judy sick and I give her medicine and then I would take some. I would never let her go without, but it still wasn't okay. My dealer got his pills from one of the doctors that was shut down. So when that happened, I was like some other people I knew, it made things hard to get, so we got heroin because it was cheaper and it was easier. Now I'm really funny about needles, so I never shut up. I just snorted it. It's still bad. I'm just fortunate that I didn't ever take that route because I don't know that would have fared well for me. As far as the effect that it had on people that loved me, I had several friends, that stopped talking to me because they just couldn't watch it. It caused problems between my brother and I. I'm nodded out at my own mom's funeral. And I got mad at him for calling me out. And then he and my sister-in-law tried to have an intervention, and I wasn't having any part of that. And he sat and cried and begged me to get clean because I was all he had left. And he was afraid that he would get a call that I was dead. And I still can't use him. And I think it wasn't until I saw my life through my son's eyes and the chaos that I had turned his life into that I got it. I had to send him to live with his dad so I could get clean. I finally had to stop being a selfish brat and do what was right for him. Because for a long time, I didn't want him to be away from me. But I didn't want to stop doing the drugs either. And I just couldn't stand for him to look like that anymore. All the lies, and the disappointment, and all the broken promises. Every time I would tell him that I wasn't going to use anymore, and I did, or that I promised them that everything was going to be okay, and it wasn't. And I just want better for him. So I got clean. And it's been really hard, but it's been the best thing. It takes a lot of work. And this, I've tried to get clean before, but nobody wants to be ghosted. You don't want to go through that. If you've ever been through it, you know what's coming. And you'll do anything to avoid it. I could never miss work, so I would actually plan my withdrawals around my work. Like I would plan when I was going to have that last fix on Friday so I could get through the weekend and then maybe by Monday, but then that third day hit. For whatever reason, that third day sucks. And so then it would start all over again.
Yeah, there are families that do suspect that their loved one is on drugs. But any time that you lose a loved one, whether you know it or you don't know it, it's very hard. And, one of the questions that I'm asked the most, why? And of course, there's no answer for that. I don't know. The only one that really knows is your loved one that has passed. And I asked the families, was there any signs that your loved one was on drugs? How did they act around the house? Most generally, they don't do it around the house. It's always done someplace else. But, the beast is so strong, and it's hard to beat. It's just like an alcoholic, it's there, you want it.
We have a couple different approaches that we're using, and let's start with drug court. Okay, these are for people who we have determined to be substance abuse disorder victims that have significant addiction issues. If they successfully complete drug court, then their charges are dismissed. The people who do not successfully complete drug court, whether it's usually involved criminal thinking more than the substance abuse issue. Generally what I do is I send them to the Department of Correction recommending therapeutic community. Then when they have completed therapeutic community, we suspend the balance of their sentence, bring them back, put them into the reentry program. The reentry program sorts out whether somebody is an addict or not pretty quickly. These are people who are coming out of prison,
Right.
And they are either thinking and acting like criminals, or they're working their recovery.
I went to jail, obviously, and I got placed in the drug court program, and it changed my life. I'm not sure that on regular probation I would have made it. I can almost guarantee you I wouldn't have. had to change absolutely everything about me. I've had to find myself again because I didn't know who I was. Sometimes I still don't. That's okay. It's a work in progress. On May 28th, I will have 2 years sober.
All right, I'm Al Sparlin. My son, if you guys can imagine, anyone's got kids. My kid, son, we had lunch with him on Sunday, October the 4th. 6 hours later, he's dead. Imagine.
I guess my story kind of starts in high school. I guess I probably started using drugs like casually when I was probably like 15, and then when I was 17, got in a real bad car accident, crushed 2 of my vertebrae, and got put on pain medicine. And that just from the moment that I started using, I knew that I was instantly hooked and knew that I loved it. I was definitely not one of those addicts that started off slow and it gradually took over. It definitely took over my life from the start. You know, as much as it's ruined my life, and you know, up to this point it had ruined my life, and you know, the bad things that it had made me do, I still had always loved it. And that's kind of the sick part about addiction, is that even all the bad, terrible things that it makes you do, it's an obsession in your mind that just doesn't go away. And people that don't have drug addictions, you know, can't understand it. It's hard to explain, because all the terrible stuff that it brings you, you're still obsessed with it and you want to get away from it. And it's just, it's so hard. And I guess you know, I've had, you know, been to try to rehab. I've been to Fairbanks 3 different times, incarcerated probably 4 or 5 different times for everything from drinking to stealing prescription pads, to, you know, possession of, you know, drugs. I pretty much tried it all. I wouldn't say, you know, one particular drug was my drug of choice. I was just an addict in general and loved all of it and didn't really discriminate.
It's real. Freedom. The revolution shall be televised. Freedom.